Prepare for a true revolution.
Actually, you can prove God exists.
Questioning tradition, because what you've been taught isn't always true.
The truth will set you free.
Welcome to Truth Revolution. This is where faith and reason meet. I'm Pastor Dave, that's Pastor Jeff, and we are from Revolution Church in Salina, Kansas.
We would love to have you come out here. We don't care what you look like or what you wear. None of that stuff matters to us at Revolution Church,
Right.
or to me or to Dave.
Right.
We just want you to get to know God better. Really, we want you to know who Jesus is. And we're not about judging people. We're about helping people know God better.
Right. Unless, of course, you're doing a double backflip off of a diving board. We can judge you then,
If we're the judges.
if we were judges, right?
But generally speaking, we're not. Hey, you know what? We believe in science and math and logic. We also believe in God. We believe the Bible is the Word of God. We believe Jesus rose from the dead. So we have faith. We have religion as well as science and logic. Today, though, instead of talking about logic or science, we're talking about something that's really near to the heart of God, and that is adoption.
Right. You've got a lot of experience in that area, Jeff. You have 5 wonderful kids running around your house. Well,
Six right now. We have 6 kids right now because we do foster care, so you never know how many kids we're going to have. Sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 6, sometimes it's 7, sometimes it's... But so we have 2 that we've adopted. One of those we adopted out of foster care. One of those was a private adoption. 3 of those were in foster care who now we have guardianship for, and then one of them is a foster child right now. So they're all my kids, but they all came. I've accumulated them through different means.
Modest man will always listen to reason.
So,
Says you.
and I've accumulated them by different means, but I believe adoption is really close to the heart of God. You know, you see this in the book of James in the Bible, in the book of Isaiah. God talks about what does He want us to do? He wants us to defend the cause of the fatherless. He wants us to help the oppressed, and He talks about widows and poor people as well. But one of the other causes is orphans or kids who are in foster care. This is really close to God's heart,
Right.
And so I really, really care about it. Today we're going to go over myths. Of course, we're going to answer a Bible contradiction as well. We're going to take a break there and look at how to solve a Bible contradiction. We also got some listener questions I want to make sure we get to, but we got some myths because I know a lot of people say, hey, adoption would be good. Adoption sounds interesting. I would like to do something like that, but boom, and here's the reason. So I just want to get to that. I think we got like 7 of the myths, and so I just want to hit some of these. Dave, what is myth number 1 that we got?
Adoption is expensive. Isn't that true?
No, it's not true. Not in all cases. In fact, private adoption can be relatively expensive. My son Simeon, he's 5 right now.
Right.
His was a private adoption. His was relatively expensive, but probably not as expensive as you'd think. I mean, I don't know. I can't remember off the top of my head. It was probably somewhere between $6,000 and $10,000, all said and done. That's a lot of money.
Right.
Right. But here's the.
Can you get that on an installment plan? Or do you have to save up to get it?
Well, actually, yeah. Here's the interesting thing: you actually are able to write that off on taxes.
Oh, wow!
In the state of Kansas, and so that's really helpful. You don't have to pay that in taxes. I think you basically can count that towards your taxes. But when you adopt from foster care, which 5 of our 6 kids are from foster care, that the adoption costs you nothing.
Really?
$0.
Wow.
Absolutely free. In fact, you don't if you're adopting a kid who's very, very high needs, like severe physical disability, then the state will even give you some money to help take care of them in the future.
Really?
But generally speaking, it just doesn't cost you any money. Here's an interesting little fact, though. If you adopt a kid out of the foster care system in the state of Kansas, they can go to a Kansas State college free of tuition.
No way.
Yeah. So if you're like, I would adopt a kid, I just can't afford college. Well, don't worry about it. Don't worry about that.
Adopt them right out of foster care.
Right out of foster care.
Wow.
And then there's some grants to help them get books and stuff like that too.
That's
and when they're in
amazing.
college. So it's really good. And in fact, even if you're doing a private adoption, there's a lot of times there are organizations you can apply to grants for. There are friends and family who will step in and say, we want to help a lot of times. Sometimes your church will even help.
Yeah.
We've done fundraisers at our church for families who wanted to adopt overseas. They adopted some special needs kids.
Right.
One with Down syndrome, one who's blind. And we did a fundraiser for them, raised some money.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, plus the thing I always find is that God provides.
Amen.
God really does provide. Every single time we've taken a risk and said, we're going to step out and do this thing that we can't afford or that we don't know if it's going to work out, God stepped in.
Right. And the one thing you want to be sure, you should always, before doing something like this, be in prayer. Because you want to make sure this is God's will for you.
Yep.
And if this is God's will for you and you step out in faith, God will provide.
That's right. So myth exploded. Adoption is not expensive. In fact, if you do it through foster care, it's completely free.
Awesome. Don't you have to be married?
That's myth
to
number
adopt?
2. Myth number 2.
No?
No, you don't have to be married. Single people can adopt.
Really?
Yeah. So I'm looking at Sam, our tech guy. Single people can adopt.
He's looking a little awkward right now.
Anyway, I've had people kind of express this to me before, like, I'd love to adopt or do foster care, but I'm not married. And you don't have to be married,
right?
You
Wow.
don't have to be married. You can adopt if you're single. Let's go to myth number 3.
All right. Special needs means there are severe problems.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
A lot of times people say, well, I looked at that adoption website and a lot of these kids, it would say that this child has special needs and I'm just not equipped to take care of someone
Right.
who can't walk or who has Down syndrome.
Yeah, I think the overall thought when somebody reads special needs is, man, this is going to take a load of resources and time that I don't really necessarily have. So what's up with that?
No, yeah. Let me give you a little clue. When you get into like the foster care world or the adoption world, just like anything else, they have their own lingo.
Okay.
And if you don't understand that lingo, it's going to sound really confusing. Like we just, I sometimes I feel when I do foster care and I meet someone else who's in other adults doing
Right.
foster care,
Yeah.
like we're in a secret club.
You have a secret handshake
Like
and
a
everything?
secret handshake. We're like, hey, I did a PPC, 72 hours over. I'm going to the judge. And they totally know what it meant. And everyone else is like, what does that mean? But
I can tell you, but I have to kill you.
right. We try to avoid killing people in foster care, but it's one of these things. Okay, when someone says special needs, if you go to like adoptkskids.org, you can see all these kids, or if you go to adoptuskids.org, you can see all these pictures of kids who want to be adopted, or if you see a list of them somewhere, a lot of times it'll say this is special needs, or it'll be a little flag or star or whatever. Let me tell you what special needs means in the adoption world.
Please do.
It means they have brothers or sisters, or it means they're like more than 11 years old.
What?
Yeah.
I don't understand why that's special needs.
Yeah, a special need adoption means that this is an older child. It's not a baby. And everyone's like, I want a baby.
Right. Everybody wants the baby.
I want a
'cause,
baby.
Yeah, they want that experience to be raising a child. They don't want to grab somebody that's already been half learned through their childhood.
And let me tell you right now, one advantage of taking someone who's not a baby. No potty training. No potty training.
Right.
That is just like, I can't even.
That's a really big deal for you, isn't it?
I literally can't even. Okay, we've had over 50 kids, and I just need to reiterate: when you take an older kid, there is no potty training. Okay, like
wow.
Oh, this is a proud, proud day.
Okay, but this is a good thing. Sometimes people think, well, older kids are more damaged. They're difficult to deal with.
Right.
In some cases, that can be true. In a lot of cases, these older kids really just want a family to love them. And you're going to have to be patient with any child you take in. Whether it's an infant that was biologically yours or whether it's a 12-year-old who's been in foster care for a few years. Every kid's going to have issues you're going to have to deal with. Now, kids in foster care, I'm not going to lie to you, they've been through some rough stuff. And so they're going to come with some emotional scars and some bruises.
Do you think that somebody necessarily, they have to have the heart for actually the hard case in order to take something like that?
I think they have to be mentally and practically trained to be prepared. They need to know what they're getting into. I have seen people jump in and I've said, whoa, you guys need to wait. And they say, hey, we want to take this teenager in. And I said, I think you guys should go through this training. You should do this thing first just so you know what you're getting into. And I said, no, we're ready. God wants us to do this. And they got into it a couple months and had to disrupt, and the kid had to leave because they just didn't know what they were getting into.
Right.
It's one of those things where if you know what you're getting into and you can be mentally and emotionally prepared for it, you can deal with it.
Right.
But if you go in and think it's going to be bubbles, roses, and baby farts, like it's not. This is not what it's going to.
Right.
I don't know why I think that's a good thing, but. you have to be prepared. And that's all there is to it. But yeah, and also special needs means brothers and sisters. Because a lot of times we'll say, hey, this brother and sister go together. 2 kids.
Okay.
They don't want to separate them. So, special needs. That doesn't mean there's anything wrong. It just means that
you're getting a 2-for-1 kind of deal.
Yeah, you get a 2-for.
Yeah.
Right? It's not a problem.
Okay.
Some of ours it came in a 3-pack. So
There you go.
and that was okay. It's really good to adopt sibling sets. Because, if you grew up with siblings, just imagine what it would be like to not only be separated from your biological parents, but your brother and sister as well. A lot of times that's more difficult.
Right. So you're taking on extra responsibility, but you're also providing these kids with some kind of familiarity with one another.
Yeah, we would call it connection, right?
Awesome.
So they form bonds and connections with parents and with siblings, and you're breaking that connection with the biological parents when they come into foster care or when their parents die or whatever happens that causes them to need to be adopted. And so they've lost that connection. It's a loss, which is a big deal. But if they can maintain that connection with a brother or sister, it maintains a lot of emotional health there.
Awesome.
That's really good. And you think about kids who've been through abuse or neglect, they a lot of times cling to their brothers and sisters because they know that their parents aren't taking care of them. And so it's good to keep that together. All right, next myth.
All right. Next myth, adopted kids don't know they were adopted.
Reality is 97% of children age 5 and older know they were adopted.
Really?
97%. Early knowledge helps children know that they were adopted. Back in the day, 30, 40 years ago, it was common, or 100 years ago, it was common to hide adoptions. Just take the kid in and nobody says anything. Just kind of the community, all the adults who see this kid growing up just don't say anything.
Right.
That's not the way it is nowadays. We realized it's called open adoption. The child knows that they were adopted. You even have some contact with the biological parents. That's a healthy thing. Yeah.
What was it that they find out that maybe down the road, maybe when somebody turns 25 or something like that, they find out they're adopted?
Yeah, that's a terrible thing.
Yeah.
That's a terrible thing. I have a friend who found his parents sat him down when I think he was 7 or 8 years old and said, we just need to let you know you're adopted. And it was just like his whole world just was turned upside down. But, for instance, my son Simeon and my daughter Macy and my other 3, all of them, we talk about where they came from. I'll tell them the story. Oh, you know what? We were praying and, we asked God for a baby girl and we got a phone call and the agency said, hey, there's a baby girl here. And when I say that, Macy, my daughter goes, oh, it was me. It was you. We went down there and I picked you up and you were so scared or, what? I just tell her the story. It just becomes part of her life experience and it becomes her adoption becomes a love story rather than a shocking experience.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's not true that most kids don't know they were adopted. 97% of them do know it, and it becomes part of their love story.
Wow. That's good. Good stuff.
Let's do another one.
All right. Myth number 5. All adopted kids have ADD, ADHD, emotional problems, or behavioral issues.
Okay. We're going to post a link to an article, pathtoparenthood.org, and we're probably going to come back to this after the break because this is a long one. It's important, okay? This is totally false that just because a child's adopted, they're going to have problems in school or they're going to have ADD or emotional problems. Okay, here's the fact. Any child, birth or adopted, can have medical, emotional, or behavioral issues. While adoption research varies greatly, it's believed that a lot of children do experience some developmental or emotional issues. All right. So there can be a certain amount of trauma when you're separated from your birth parent. But these problems do not always lead into problems the rest of their life.
Right.
Just detecting what happened, dealing with the issue, helps resolve some of these problems. And so if your child says, gosh, I'm sad, where'd my birth parents go? We can talk about it. We can go see a counselor if you need to. If some of them have ADD, like any kid could have ADD,
right.
You can deal with it. And it's not this crazy, awful scenario. Hey, we're going to come back because there's another myth that's close to this that I really want to nail down with some actual scientific research.
Okay.
About adopted kids. We're also going to answer a Bible contradiction, get some listener questions. We're going to get through a lot more information here in the second half. Dave, we're from Revolution Church. What time do we meet on Sunday?
10 a.m., 11:30 a.m., and 5 o'clock p.m.
10, 11:30, and 5 p.m. Coming out to Revolution Church. We would love to have you.
True Truth Revolution.
And we are back
Yes.
talking about adoption today.
The myths.
Yeah, and it's something, as you said earlier, very near and dear to God's heart for us to take care of these kids. So,
Absolutely it is.
Right.
All right, let's talk about this. Another myth. I believe this is myth number 6.
adopted kids have a void or don't ever feel part of a family.
There are people who say this.
Yeah.
Like if you're adopted, or they fear this. If you're adopted, you don't ever really feel like you belong. Now,
Wait a minute.
what?
I look at your family, Jeff.
Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, if they feel like they don't belong or whatever, I can't tell. Because your family sure acts like a family that loves one another. They chase each other around laughing, and like on Sundays when we're up on the stage practicing, your youngest daughter every Sunday run up on stage and grabs your leg.
Yeah.
And to me,
Right.
that's amazing. And there's
Right.
no void in that life.
Yeah, exactly. And this is just a misconception. Look, the reality is there will often be a curiosity or a desire to know their birth parents or where they came from, and that's okay. That is not the same as having a void or not feeling part of your family. Right? They can, and we do make sure all of our kids know where they came from, and they still love their family, their adopted family. All right. And they still love their biological family where they came from. Cause we tell them that, yeah, your biological parents love you, and they couldn't take care of you for whatever reason. And we adopted you. You're part, now you're our family. And the studies actually show that this is interesting. Scientific research has shown that adopted children feel as close to their family as their non-adopted siblings.
Awesome.
So whatever your family closeness is, that's what your adopted children will feel. The same as whatever the other siblings in that family would have felt. And they actually, according to the research, tend to do better in terms of friendship and happiness through their teen years.
Really? Better?
Yeah, better. Seriously, isn't that cool?
Yeah. That's awesome.
That is awesome. So they do better in terms of friendship and happiness through teen years. Also, in adult years.
Really?
They really do. Now, there's a lot of reasons why. There's questions. A lot of times people who adopt are a lot more focused as parents. They tend to be people who they have decent jobs, they have the means, and then they have the time and they have the focus. I adopted this child. I have to put my effort into it. It's not just someone who accidentally got pregnant or just they decided to have kids as part of their normal life plan. It was someone who said, "We want a child, and we're going to do this on purpose. We have to adopt.
Yeah.
We're gonna get books about it." So they're much more intentional about it. And these kids grow up in this environment where the parents were much more intentional about how they raise their children, and the children end up having better teen years and better adult years. There's 2 studies that we're going to link to on our website if you go to truthrevolution.tv. First one was 1994. The Search Institute in Minneapolis released the results of a Growing Up Adopted. Okay, this is a 4-year study of 881 adopted adolescents, 1,262 adopted parents, and 78 non-adopted siblings. For comparison.
Right.
All right, here's some of the things. Adopted teens scored better than non-adopted siblings in connectedness, having 3 or more friends.
Right.
And in having access to 2 or more non-parent adults for advice.
Wow.
Yeah. That's
amazing.
Yeah, they tend to be able to build those relationships. They scored better in caring, placing a high value on helping other people.
That kind of makes sense, actually, because you think it trickled down from the adopted parents to the child.
Yeah, that would totally make sense. Social competency, friendship making, and assertiveness skills they did better in. Adopted teens scored higher than non-adopted adolescents in school achievement. They have a B average or better, and most of them, or a higher number of them, aspire to higher education.
Wow.
They do better in optimism. They expect to be happy in 10 years and expecting to be successful as an adult, more so than non-adopted kids.
That's nuts. That's awesome.
Yeah. Support, having a high level of support from parents and from the school. It just, isn't this crazy?
It's almost like, hey, why can't every child be adopted?
I wish I was adopted. Right? I mean, like, holy smokes. And it just goes on and on. We're going to look at this other study that was done by a report by the Department of Health and Human Services in 2007. Called Adoption USA, federal survey of 2,000 families of adopted children from foster care internationally or private adoption. And they found, Dave, read that first bullet for me.
Let's see, adopted children were more likely to be read to every day as a young child. 60% of adopted children versus 48% of children.
68 to
in the general
48%.
population.
Isn't that interesting?
That is nuts.
Yeah. Adopted children were more likely to be sung or told stories to every day as a young child.
Huh. Adopted children are more likely to participate in extracurricular activities as school-age children.
And more than half of adopted children reported to have excellent or very good performance in reading, language, arts, and math. It's crazy.
You know, it's funny because I've got some family members. They can be kind of cruel to each other. They're joking around all the time. But one of the things that they always say to each other to just kind of joke around or hurt each other, is you're adopted.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and after hearing this, that's a compliment.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It means apparently our parents gave more attention to you and you're more socially competent.
That's awesome.
You scored better in school. I love it. All right. You know what? Let's go jump or do a Bible contradiction.
Bible contradiction.
All right. Shall you honor thy parents?
Yeah.
Matthew 15:4 says,
Your adopted parents too.
yeah, right on. Okay. For God said, honor your father and mother, and anyone who curses his father and mother must be put to death. So basically, you curse your parents and be executed, right?
Yep.
All right. Compare that to Matthew 10:35-37. For I have come to turn a man against his father, a daughter against her mother, a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies will be the members of his own household. So what exactly happened to honor your mother and father?
Yeah. So Jesus was saying that. I mean, you get God giving this command, honor your father and mother. And then you have Jesus saying, I came to turn a man against his father and daughter and them against him. And well, the way this is really easy Bible contradiction to solve because most people who come up with Bible contradictions don't actually know their Bible.
Right.
K for knit together. If you knit a shirt together and you pull on one string, it's going to kind of tug at the other end of the shirt, right? It's all knit together. Well, Jesus here is quoting the Old Testament. When you pull on one part of the Bible, it affects all the others, right? Jesus didn't just say, oh yeah, I came because I wanted to really tick off parents. I just want to make children hate their mom and dad. That's why I'm here. No, he was quoting the Old Testament. Okay, he was quoting Micah chapter 7. Dave, will you read this?
Yes, the day God visits you has come. The day
now pause there for a second.
Okay.
Micah is prophesying. He says, the day God visits you has come. What will that day be like?
Okay. The day your watchman sounds the alarm. Now is the time of your confusion. Do not trust a neighbor. Put no confidence in a friend. Even with the woman who lies in your embrace, guard the words of your lips. For a son dishonors his father. A daughter rises up against her mother. A daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law. A man's enemies are the members of his own household.
That's what the Old Testament prophet said. It's going to be like when God visits you. And so Jesus says, hey, I came to turn a father against his daughter and daughter-in-law against mother-in-law. And what are all the people who actually know the Bible hearing when Jesus says this?
They're actually hearing the prophecy.
They're hearing the prophecy.
They're hearing him say, well, wait a minute. You're saying that...
You're saying that God has come to visit us?
Are you saying you're God?
Are you saying you're God? Jesus? Okay. See, not only did they think this was a Bible contradiction, and that was wrong, they missed the fact that Jesus was claiming to be God by quoting the Old Testament. When God comes to visit you, this will happen. And Jesus goes, hey, I came, and this is happening because I'm God.
Yeah. So not only is it not a Bible contradiction, it's like almost totally the opposite.
Totally the opposite. Yeah. Jesus was fulfilling prophecy.
Right. Wow.
So complete opposite of a contradiction. It's fulfilled prophecy and proof of Jesus' deity.
Bible contradiction.
Wow. That was a pretty good slam there.
Yeah. All right. Now we're going to back to these adoption myths. All right, that same study we were looking at before, 68% of adopted families report post-adoption contact with the birth family. Interesting. Most adoptions, they still have some kind of contact with the birth family, which initially sounds scary, but it's actually a good thing. Because right now, my kids, they all have connections with their biological past, their birth mothers, and they can sometimes say, hey, where's my tummy mommy? We can say, well, you want to talk to her? Let's call her. And it's just it's like this healing, happy moment. Let's go on to another myth here, Dave.
All right. A study shows that the adopted kids don't do well in kindergarten.
Oh my gosh. You know what? There was one study that showed they didn't do well in kindergarten.
There was
a study. But as we just pointed out in the previous one, that difference goes away,
Right.
Because they actually do better in the long run than non-adopted siblings.
And that makes sense, though, because when a kid is coming out of a troubled home and stuff like that, they're going to have problems.
Yeah.
But if you're a focused parent, like one who would adopt a person,
Yeah.
that's going to change.
Yeah.
All right. Next myth. It's not worth it because it could break my heart.
Well, it is true that it could break your heart. It might, but it's still worth it.
Right.
You know, we've had our heart broken a couple times. And this is like some of people's biggest excuse. And I love my wife to death. When people say, she's like so bold about this. When people actually say to her, I just couldn't do it. You know, it could break my heart. You know what she says if she's talking about foster care or adoption? She says, well, it might break your heart. But there are kids right now whose hearts are breaking. And they need an adult who's going to step in and let the adult's heart break for the child.
Wow.
You're not willing to do that for a child? You're not willing to let your heart break for that child whose heart is already breaking?
Wow. That is bold.
That's bold. Look, we do this because God called us to it. We do this because the children need homes, moms, and dads. And we do this because we know that we learn to love, and we love them. I don't regret the kids that I have. I love them deeply.
No, you can tell.
And according to these scientific studies, they're going to be better off in the long run.
There you go.
Hey, this has been Truth Revolution from Revolution Church. Come out to Revolution Church 10 o'clock,
11:30, and 5
p.m. That's right. So we just changed service times. This is why we're always confused right now. But get out to truthrevolution.tv. That's the radio show's website. Truthrevolution.tv and revo.church is our website for the church. That's revo.church. We'd love to have you. Thanks for listening to our adoption special. Join us next week as we get back into apologetics, scientific information, and other brainy type stuff.
Now go forth and adopt.